Albariño. In the words of Robert Parker, Spain's gift to the world of wine. Back in 2001, when we announced to the world that we were going to open up our own level 3 quarantine, we called for expressions of interest. And some of the first people to approach us were Doug and Delwyn Bell, local vignerons right here in Gisborne. They'd spent some time in Spain, had tasted Albariño, wine made from Albariño, and were very impressed with the ability for this variety to handle wet conditions and be very tolerant of botrytis pressure. So we tracked down a very good source of this material from a vineyard selection in Spain, put it into our quarantine program, and that came out of quarantine ready for bulking up in about 2006, I think it was. Coincidentally, right about that time, the Australians, who had already imported Albariño some 10 years before and had now planted over 300 hectares, discovered that in fact they didn't have Albariño. They were making wine, they were selling it as Albariño, and it was being very well received in the Australian market. But it turned out, in fact, it was a totally different variety called Sauvignon Blanc. Don't confuse that with Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc from Jura in the east of France, which is a non-aromatic yellow style wine. Very, very different to Albariño. So we were obviously a little concerned to make sure that if the Australian industry had mucked this one up, we wanted to make sure we did have the real deal. We took samples, put them through our laboratory, Linnaeus laboratory, for DNA testing, and then for further clarification sent them to Untitled in Montpellier in France. So we were very relieved to discover that, and yes, in fact, our original import was indeed Albariño, the real deal. Let's go and have a look at it. So Nick, can you tell us if what we're seeing on the vines here of Albariño, the qualities that Doug and Delwyn saw in Spain, has that come through in the selection that we've imported?
Early days for Albariño in New Zealand, but as you can see from the bunches, exactly what Doug and Delwyn are talking about. Very, very loose bunches, quite productive. You know, there's a lot of bunches on there, as you can see, and very loose, no botrytis. And I think in terms of growing this variety, Albariño's timing-wise is probably a week to 2 weeks later than Chardonnay in terms of bud burst, flowering, and probably harvest as well. So we're looking at a couple of weeks later than Chardonnay, and very open, loose bunches that are resistant to botrytis.
It's important to realise these vines are only this is their first crop, so they're still young vines. Having said that, what we've noticed, whenever we plant Albariño, it loves to run. It's quite a vigorous variety, and they will, in the first year, we will get 2 or 3 shoots right up 3.5 metres high up through our tall canopy. Nick, perhaps you can tell a little bit about, in terms of flavours, you know, sort of the wine style. Again, what Doug and Del were looking for there, and why Albariño is getting so much attention around the world.
I think very good acidity in this variety, and I think that's going to be the key for New Zealand wines, is crisp and acidic wines with good flavours of lime, and I get a bit of pear flavours in there, and I think that's going to be the key, is making drier style wines with good acidity.
Well, that's our Spanish importation of Albariño. And now we're going to have a look now at 3 clones that we imported from Plancel Nursery in Portugal. Interestingly, not a lot of clonal selection has been done in either Spain or Portugal over the years. Plancel Nursery has really led the way. We are now the New Zealand licensee for all of their varieties and clones. And let's go and have a look at them and just see if any differences or not from the Spanish selections.